Welcome to Wire Guild. The tutorial that I'm doing is a really sweet little pendant, and I've shown you 3 different ways to do it, so you can use 3 different materials, and these are the 3 different pendants. It makes a great birthstone pendant, and birthstone pendants are always really good sellers. So the materials I'm listing here are for the first version of the pendant, and I've got about 10 inches of 21 gauge square wire, a 6mm snap set, a 6mm gemstone, and about 6 inches of 21 gauge half round wire for the binding. And this is the pendant. As you can see, any of the birthstones that go in, you can do CZs, anything like that. So I'm just straightening the wire out. You really want it to be reasonably straight when doing this. Also, by rubbing it slightly with a cloth, I'm giving it a little bit more strength, because it's a dead soft wire. So by rubbing it, I am hardening it ever so slightly. If you have half hard wire, you could use that, but I've got about 10 inches here. You may find that you want to make them a bit bigger or a bit smaller. Have a go. So I've marked the middle point, which is on 5 inch, and I've taken some flat pliers, and I'm putting it on the face of the square wire, and I'm going to bend just into a corner like that. Don't bend all the way around the pliers, because you'll end up with a square lump in the bottom. Just a corner like that. So I'm going to bring it down with my fingers, and then I'm going to put the pliers over the top and just squeeze them together and make sure that they're nice and flat. When you're making such a lightweight pendant with only one piece of wire, you need strength, because otherwise it'll just be a flimsy pendant. That bend that we've just put in will give us the strength that we need to create the pendant. So that piece there is going to be up in the top, not down at the bottom. It's going to be at the top. Now I've got a snap set here that's already been set. Normally you would already set them and then slide them onto the wires. We're going to do this a different way. So my stone's there, and let me just get another snap set out. We're going to use the snap set to actually hold the shape that we're going to bend the wires into as well. So we're going to put it on after as opposed to before. So not before. Now let me just get my wires. I'm probably about 1.5 inches, 2 inches down, and I'm going to put my round nose pliers on either side. Can you see that there's that middle line up the middle? And then I'm just going to bend one way and one the other. So I've just got like a Y shape. There we go. By doing it over the pliers, you get the bends exactly the same height. If you try and do them separately, they end up different. Now I'm sliding this in so that I have one in the middle at the bottom, one either side underneath the bends. Let me just push that in, and then 3 little pegs over the top. Let me just turn that around so you can see where I've gone in. This means that the snap set won't move at all. Stone face down. Use your thumb if you can. If your thumb's not strong enough, use just something flat. I've just got a little piece of selenite here, and I just put the snap down and then push, and it'll go snap, and we're in. Lovely. So you can see that the stone is holding the shape as well, so it's adding to the strength and stability of really what is just one simple wire. I'm going to grip with my round nose pliers as close to the snap set as I can get, and then wind my wire around the snap set. Sorry, I've taken it out of shot. Get it back in. There we go. All the way around like that, so you get a nice round circle. Do the same on the other side, so as close as I can get to the actual setting, and then wrap all the way around. Now this wire comes up the front, but this one's trying to go to the back, so just whiz it round so that they're both the same. There we are. Now I'm going to bring these round, and it'll either form a perfect circle or it'll do a spiral, but they always turn out different, it doesn't matter. I've just curved that wire slightly and then bring it round, all the way round, past that central bit, round, past. And then I'm going to bend that wire up, and then the same on the other side, curve it, holding the wire down near the bottom and bring it all the way around. If you hold the wire near the bottom, you get a very gentle, natural, organic looking curve to the wire. If you try and bend it with pliers or your fingers all the way around, it won't be as smooth, it'll be sort of a little bit jumpy. So I'm just going to make that come a little further with the pliers, bring you around there. Looks like I'm going to make this one into a proper circle. Some I make into spirals, some I make into circles. It depends the way the wire is actually lending itself. A lot of the time it's, there we go, and then just bring those all together. If they're crossing over, just bring the wires back. We want them to all lay side by side. So in effect you're going to get 4 wires side by side at the top. So I'm going to get my bit of 21 gauge half round binding wire, and then making sure that I've got the flat edge down, I'm going to put a nice sharp bend in there, as I always do when I'm binding. Always put a sharp bend in, and then I'm going to start and I'm going to bind around the 4 wires, flattening down each time and going around. Keep going. Press down. A lot of people, when they're doing wire jewellery, are put off by doing anything so lightweight because normally they're not strong enough. But with that secure bend that we put in first, and then the curls that we've put in at the side of the stone, that adds extra structure. And then because we've come all the way back up to the top, and then we're binding around and binding it to the bit that we bent in half, all of these steps adding to the strength of the piece, making it, you know, perfectly serviceable piece of jewellery. I'm just going round and press down and go round and press down and keep going. I like the look of this binding. It's very simple, it's quite sleek and smooth, and it's a great way of practicing your binding because you do quite a lot of binding on this, so just keep going. What we're aiming for is enough wire to actually make a curl at the top that's all bound. Now I've gone past the bent end now, so what I've done is I've just pulled those 2 wires together like that, straighten them up, come on, there we are, and then I'll continue binding. So I'll go down that little slope, and then it'll drop onto just the 2 wires. So all the strength of the folded over piece is now inside that binding. And I'm probably only going to wrap around maybe 4 or 5 times onto the 2 wires. Now if you don't have 21 gauge half round wire, you could use 18 gauge if that's what you've got. It's just I prefer, because it's a lightweight pendant, it's a small pendant, I prefer the lighter weight binding wire. So I've trimmed off and pressed down onto the back. Make sure that first one's tight by pulling it, go around again, just using the wire up really, it's not that it's necessary or anything. And then I'll trim that end and press it down with the pliers to make sure it's all nice and neat. and then I'm going to trim these ends off. I'm leaving a little tiny bit, can you see, just enough to grip with the round nose pliers. If you go right off the end where the binding is, the binding tends to slip off when you try and curl it. So I'm just curling that round bit and then holding tight. Sorry, I need to move my hands again. Hang on. There we go, all the way round in a circle like that. And that's your pendant, and it looks to me like you know the idea of fairy wings when they're closed on the back of the fairy, or you get these really pretty moths, don't you, and they sit and the wings sort of sit down like that. It looks a little bit like that. Now this one I did the spiral instead of a curl, and you can see it's a bit shorter, a little bit fatter, but like I said, they all turn out ever so slightly different. So that's the one with the snap set on. So that's your first variation, if you like. Now the second one, you're going to use the same amount of square wire and half round wire, but this time I've used an 8mm pearl and just a little scrap of 26 gauge or 0.4mm round wire, and it makes the pendant to look like this. Very similar, and you could use any bead, it doesn't have to be a pearl. It's just, I came up with this with the birthstone pendants because of course the pearl's one of the birthstones, and you can put it in a snap set. So, and also it gives you a different range of prices. You can have one range of these done with beads that are one set of pricing, and then another one with gemstones that are another set of pricing. So it's great because your customers then can buy to what they can afford, as opposed to, you know, oh, that's all you've got and I liked it but I can't afford it. So I've just bent the wire in half exactly as we did with the first one. So that's nice and closed, and I'm going to use my round nose pliers over the top, just like we did. So either side of the line in the middle, grip with my, and it's twisting. You do have to be careful when you grip it, because if you grip it too hard the wires will click over one another, and I don't want that to happen. Then bend one way and one the other, so I've got the same Y shape. Okay, but this time I'm going to open it up a little bit more, and instead of starting and putting the snap set in, I'm going to I've got a little piece of wire there, just need to grab the pearl. They never come when you want them to, do they? They just wriggle away from you. Come here. Sorry, I know you can't see it, but it's rolling around the table off shot. Just need to try and catch it. There we go. Alright, so this isn't a real pearl. This is Swarovski glass pearl. But you could use a real pearl if you've got one. I must admit I tend to get these because the holes are bigger and I can put thicker wire through. So I've just put my little scrap of fine wire through, and I'm just going to bind it on. I've put it in the V area of the wire, and I'm just binding around, come here, and the same on the other side, just wrapping it round the stems really, probably about 4 or 5 times, just making sure that pearl's not going to go anywhere. Then using snips, trim off nice and close and press it down. Can you see how I twist as I press? That's so that instead of pushing it down, I'm sort of smoothing it over the wire. That makes it lay down and stay still so much better than just pushing it. That sort of, watch as I go on, and I smooth round. Unfortunately I also smooth round and pull it towards me, sorry about that. Now I'm just tightening these up, so the pliers on and press down, because we need that end to be quite tight because we're going to make that into the bails again. So press a little more, it'll just tuck in round the pearl, it's alright, there we go. Come here. Right, This also looks very nice, even though I haven't done it. I'm going to do the same circles that I did with the one with the snap set. I'm just going to put the pliers in and create those circles going round. But I was just going to say, this pendant looks really nice if you actually add some smaller beads to the wires. Once you've put this curl in, because like I said, this curl's necessary for the structure. You do need a curl down the bottom, otherwise it just gets a little bit flimsy. So I'll just bring that curl round. Sorry, I need to shift my hands forward again. There we go, can you see? I think my camera's moved. I need to shift myself. So this is going to be very similar to the other one. I've got the curls there at the top, and then I can bring the sides in and use the pliers to just make them lay flat either side of the fold that we already put in. There we go. And bind it. Like I say, those outer edges look very pretty if you put beads down over those, little silver beads or little coloured beads or other little pearls or anything like that. Or you could wire a pearl into over the top of the two circles that we've put in the bottom. It's one of those where you know it's only your imagination that holds you back. So if you can think about it, particularly with wire jewellery, you can make it, because there really isn't that much in the way of rules. So I've folded my binding wire and I'm going to go over again exactly the same as we did with the first one, and I'm going to press it down each time with my pliers, because of course we're going for a nice flat binding. We want those 4 wires sitting nice and neatly side by side with the binding going over the top of it, so that when we roll it to create the bail, you get this nice sort of flat looking thing rather than a little clumpy lump that you've just sort of bound. It's the difference between something looking, I can't really say professional, but more like people think jewellery ought to look, and that's probably an odd way around, but it is more what people expect. They expect smooth, flat lines. So we'll just press that down, and I'll whiz it round a few more times, and press down. Let's have a look at that other end, tighten it up a bit, go around. That's it. You can also experiment if you wanted with the bottom of the binding. 1 or 2 small beads added to the binding at the bottom looks very attractive. You can't go all the way around, of course, because you wouldn't have the bit to tuck in, but you can go as far as it, you know, sort of like where the top of the circle's going to go. So squeeze those 2 wires in again over the top of the piece that we folded, and then I've just wrapped around down the slope and around the 2 wires. Cut off on the back and press it down, and the same with the wire at the bottom. Make sure it's at the back. Not as noticeable when you've got a bead on, back and front, you just decide, but more noticeable when you've done one with the gemstone in. Round nose pliers onto the bit that isn't bound to start your circle going, and then bend all the way round until it touches. Almost got a bit longer stem, let's just bend it a bit further. There we go. Lovely. So we have now ones with the snap sets in with the gemstones, and one with a bead on. So any bead, but I've used a pearl. Okay, right. Third variation. Now this one I've done in round wire and I've done it in copper, so 0.8mm or 20 gauge round copper wire. I've used some 21 gauge half round copper wire, and I use 6 5mm amber beads. Now I love this. This reminds me of a ladybird. It's really cute and it sells really well. So I've used a lot more wire, and I'm just going to get the halfway point there, measure it on the, yeah. So put pliers on, bend over. Not quite as easy as doing it with square wire as doing it with round, because when you try and bring them together like this, they have a tendency to try and slither and slip and move about. So a little bit more difficult, but if you've done the other two first, you'll have had some practice. So doing this one then will be a case of, oh yeah, that's easy, I can do that. So I've got my stem now, exactly the same way that is going to go up into the pendant, but I'm much lower down here. It's going to be a slightly bigger pendant. Let me just get my wires together, holding them side by side in the round nose pliers and bending out one way and the other. Again, more difficult to do with round wire. So I've got my stem going up there. I've put my little bend in, and I am going to slide my first bead on. And like I said, the little 5mm amber beads, but you can use any size beads. If you're going to use a really large bead, like an 8mm, I would suggest you use a little bit more wire. Sorry, I slipped 2 on then at once. Just ignore that. Now, using my finger, I'm going to wrap the wire all the way around the bead. This stops the bead from moving and gets it in place. The next bead is a little bit further up, maybe 1/4 of an inch away, and I wrap the wire around the bead exactly the same. If you've got a little gap, or if you think it needs a bit more, wrap around again. It just adds to the piece. It doesn't matter if they all have 2 wraps, or one has 2 and one has 1 and one has 3. It really doesn't matter. So I'm going to slide my third bead down and onto the piece and wrap around and around. I'm going around twice again on this one. There we go. Up to the top and curve the wire so this is going to come up flat. Now, same thing on the other side. So bead on down to the bend we put in, finger underneath, support the bead, and then wrap the wire all the way around the bead. Think about which way you're wrapping the wire around. You don't want the wire ended up pointing downwards. It's going to come around and point up. I'm just tightening that up a bit. It wasn't right tight on the beginning. Lovely. Let's put the next one on. Much darker bead. This is the case when you get amber. Sometimes you get golden ones, sometimes you get brown ones. It doesn't matter. And wrap the wire all the way around the bead. Do I need to go around again? I might do. Yeah, okay, I will. There we go. All the way around. Ready for the next bead. There we are. If I can find the hole. Honestly. I'm sure sometimes they hide. There it is. So I'll pop that on. Little bit of gap between. Hold it with the finger. Wire all the way around. And I'll go around again. This is why we needed more wire, you see, because of course we're doing a lot more wrapping backwards and forwards. Then bring those together. Use flat pliers, don't use round pliers. Round pliers don't work, honestly. I've brought those together, and then I'm going to do the binding with the half round wire exactly the same as I did on the other two. keeping those 4 wires nice and flat, nice and parallel. Just bend that one a little bit with my finger. There we are. It's really strange, I have to get it the right way around because I can only actually wrap from left to right. I don't know whether it's something to do with being right-handed or whether it's just me, but I always find it easier to wrap from left to right. Maybe it's something to do with reading, I don't know. Anyway, wrap those 4 wires and keep pressing down. Keep going. Now if you wanted to get really clever, you can double this up before you do the binding and put 2 lots on, which gives you like 4 wings, which also looks really pretty. But try practicing it the basic way first before you get all adventurous. Although I am expecting you to get adventurous, and I'm really looking forward to the photos that you put on the forum because your imagination's great, I love it. So keep wrapping. Now I don't know whether you can see, but 1 wire is not long enough to go past the folded bit, so whereas in the past I've wrapped those wires over the folded bit, I'm going to do it the other way around. So I'm just going to trim that down slightly shorter so that they're both slightly shorter than the folded bit, and keep wrapping. The copper's moving a lot more underneath my fingers. The square wire, I mean you could use square copper, the square copper wire, it works very much like the square silver wire, so any square wire is much firmer. You'll find that when you use round wire there's this softness to it, so you do have to be a little bit more careful when you're wrapping it because it will tend to try and twist underneath your fingers. It's not that it's wrong or bad, it's just it's different, and you'll notice the difference as soon as you do one in square and then you do one in round. Right, just wrap that round a little more. I'm not going to go quite to the end, I'm going to stop just shy of the end. There we go. Just trim that off. Press it down. And then let's have a look at the other end. Lift, bring around, trim off, and press it down so it's flat. Round nose pliers onto the end, curl all the way around so it touches, and I've just tucked that end in a little so it sort of goes past the touch point, and separate its wings, and it looks like a little ladybird. I kind of like that one. Now of course it's copper, so I'll be oxidising it, but these are the 3 variations. You should, with a little practice, be able to make these in a matter of minutes. It's a good one if you want to do some demonstrations, you know, if people want to see that you're making, especially the little ladybird one. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. I look forward to seeing what you make, and happy wrapping.